Touch the leg and welcome to Tibet This Week, a weekly news edition on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's have a look at today's headlines. Kashag urges PRC government to immediately release all Tibetans detained in Derge protests and respect rights and aspirations of Tibetans. Freedom House gives Tibet Global Freedom Score of 0. Canada's Governor-General recognizes Tibetan family with distinction. Representative Dr. Arya meets Secretary of Japan Parliamentary Support Group for Tibet. Preparatory Committee in Taiwan holds several meetings to discuss arrangements for upcoming Tibetan National Uprising Day. Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C. hosts Canadian Parliamentary Delegation. 19th Local Assembly of Tibetan Community of Switzerland and Liechtenstein sworn in. Swiss Parliamentary Group for Tibet re-established after elections. On Thursday this week, Kashag of the Central Tibetan Administration released a statement showing concern on the brutal crackdown on peaceful Tibetan protesters in Derge, Tibet by authorities of the People's Republic of China, which has resulted in mass arbitrary detention and injuries to many Tibetans. Since last month, Tibetans have been appealing to halt the planned construction of hydroelectric power plant that would result in forceful relocation of hundreds of Tibetans from their ancestral village and destruction of centuries-old monasteries dating back to 13th century that house a wealth of ancient relics and murals of Buddha. Sigyong Pemba Sring, the president of the Central Tibetan Administration, condemned the crackdown of non-violent protests in Derge, calling the act as a disregard for Tibetans' fundamental rights by the Chinese authorities. Sigyong also urged the PRC government to immediately release all Tibetans detained in Derge protests and to respect the rights and aspirations of Tibetans. The Kashag in the statement urged all foreign ministries, UN bodies and relevant offices for immediate attention and action with 5-point appeals to the international community to call upon the PRC government. As per the Freedom House 2024 report released on February 29, Tibet's global freedom score has now dropped all the way to 0. The report says Tibet has a political rights score of -2 out of a possible 40 and a civil liberties score of 2 out of possible 60. That gives Tibet an overall score of 0 out of 100. The 0 rating is Tibet's worst in the least 8 years. Tibet had an overall score of 1 in Freedom House 2023 report. According to the report, in Tibet, the CCP aggressively defends its monopoly on political power and any expression of support for self-determination is severely punished. For decades, Beijing has encouraged the settlement of Han Chinese and forced hundreds of thousands of ethnic Tibetans into re-education, resettlement or employment programs that are rife with political indoctrination, effectively attempting to sinicize the region and erase Tibetan identity. As a result, Tibet is one of the least free places in the world with an aggregate score that is even lower than China's. During 2023, approximately 1 million Tibetan children were separated from their families and put into state-run boarding schools where official versions of Han Chinese culture and language are forcefully inculcated. On 7 December 2023, the Rabke family from Lindsay, Ontario, was awarded the Meritorious Service Cross by Canada's Governor-General, Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Mary Simon. The Meritorious Service Cross is one of the highest distinctions a Canadian civilian can receive to recognize individuals for exceptional work that bring honour to Canada. Pinzok Rabke, Tsiring Doga Rabke, Dr. Lobsang Rabke and Dr. Tashi Rabke were awarded the Meritorious Service Cross in recognition for their lifetime dedication to the service and empowerment of the Tibetan community in Tibet, as well as their creation of Machik, an organization that has sparked widespread support both within their local community in Lindsay, Ontario, and among Tibetan diaspora in North America. On Tuesday this week, representative of the Liaison Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama for Japan and East Asia, Dr. Arya, met with Ishikawa Akimasa, Vice Minister of the Cabinet and Digital Ministry and General Secretary of the Japan Parliamentary Support Group for Tibet, at his chamber at the Japan Parliament's lower house building in Tokyo. Representative Arya briefed lawmaker Ishikawa Akimasa on the outcome of the recently concluded International Tibet Support Group's meeting held in Brussels City from 23rd to 25th February. A brief explanation of the ITSG statement and the 7 major action plans was done, and the request was made for the support of the parliament members in realizing the plans. Dr. Arya apprised the lawmaker on the critical situation inside Tibet, including the recent mass arrest of the Tibetans peacefully protesting Chinese forced relocation and destruction of monasteries in Derge region in eastern Tibet to build dams in the region. Lawmaker Ishikawa Akimasa expressed his solidarity with the Tibetans in Tibet, and he thanked the representative for his briefing on the outcome of the International Tibet Support Group meeting and promised his full cooperation in getting the plans executed. The 10 March Preparatory Committee in Taiwan, including Tibetan Association of Taiwan and Regional Tibetan Youth Congress, made all-out preparations for the upcoming 65th Tibetan National Uprising Day commemoration under the leadership of the Taipei-based Office of Tibet. The Preparatory Committee met 3 times since January this year. On Monday this week, the Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C. welcomed a Canadian Parliamentary delegation from Quebec on 4th March. In honor of the visiting delegation, the Office of Tibet hosted a dinner. The distinguished guests included Yves-François Blanchet, leader of the Bloc Québécois and MP for Beloeil-Champly, MP Simon-Pierre Savoie-Tremblay, spokesperson for international trade, automotive and aerospace, MP Christine Normandin, spokesperson for national defense, and MP Jean-Denis Caron, spokesperson for industries, national revenue, green finance and equalization. Also present were Karine Roderick, Executive Assistant to MP Blanchet, and Raphael Guiraud, Consular Assistant to MP Blanchet. Tibetan Local Justice Commissioner of Southern Region Pinso Palden joined representative of Tibet Bureau Geneva Election Commissioner Tile Chüki along with the staff of the Office of Tibet and the official witnesses to administer the oath of office to the newly elected members of the 19th Local Tibetan Assembly of the Tibetan Community of Switzerland and Liechtenstein while Google Meet on 3rd March. Trongpa Tsangudun Gyatso and Kangrang Kyelsan Namge was sworn in as the President and Vice President, along with the recently elected members of the 19th Local Tibetan Assembly of Tibetan Community of Switzerland and Liechtenstein. On Tuesday this week, the Swiss Parliamentary Group for Tibet was re-established after the elections in Switzerland and held its first meeting in the Parliament building on the sidelines of the ongoing Swiss session of the Swiss Parliament. During the meeting, representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration for Central and Eastern Europe, Ms. Tile Chüki, congratulated the members on winning the elections and thanked them for continuing their strong support for Tibet. The meeting was attended by co-president of the Swiss Parliamentary Group for Tibet, Fabian Molina, Nicolas Walter, and Nick Garger, vice president of the group Maya Graf, member of the group Barbara Gissi, and Matthias Zoffi, and his personal assistant Kai. Mr. Pinso Topgel, UN Advocacy Officer from Tibet Bureau Geneva, Mr. Thomas Buckley, President of the Swiss Tibetan Friendship Association, and Ms. Fanny Lona Morel, Coordinator of the French section of the association, also attended the meeting along with Representative Tile Chüki, who virtually participated in the meeting. That is all the news for this week's edition of Tibet This Week. Thank you for watching Tibet TV.